Good evening. You are listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pinos Palace just west of Orlando, Florida. I am in the Extreme Studios with RDV on the line from the Great Midwest. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a bit of a different tour. Normally, when we do, like, say, a rest in peace type video, in this case, Gene Hackman, and we put his films up, the ones you voted for are all there. And the tally, the winner is the movie we're doing tonight, A Bridge Too Far from 1977, a 3-hour-long war film that has everybody under the sun that was a big name actor at the time. Most names you will get into. And RDV, I'm going to tell you, I've seen this film. It's been a long time. And all I kept thinking about tonight was how much I wanted to talk about what war films mean, what they meant, some of the scenes, some examples, not good or bad. But this is one of those films that I'm watching going, I don't mind the length. I thought it would bother you. Love the star cast.
Yeah.
Then I hate the fact that the story's not about one person. So I've got a lot of positives and negatives just from a personal aspect from it that I want to try to make my feelings known, but as well as my thoughts on how I think this is one of the better war movies that you could see. And it's also one of the later ones in the 70s, right? Until everything became like Saving Private Ryan and explosions and that kind of stuff. And
yes,
I don't know. Was this the first watch for you, or tell me how you came across this film other than the poll?
This was a first watch for me. I came across this on Tubi.
Yep, it's on Tubi right now in the United States here. Free.
That's why I watched it. And this is my first time watching war symbol movies. You know, I've actually sat through and I enjoyed Penn. So I saw the stars started casting here. You know, I was like, we got Sean Connery, Robert Redford, Gene Hackman, Michael Caine. Then we got the other guy from Love Story in here too. What's his name? I can't remember what his name is. Oh man, it's actually like
you said Robert Redford already. I thought.
No, it's not Robert Redford. Ryan O'Neal.
Oh yeah, son or father to Tatum. I think he got his ass beaten, died in the ring with Ricky Schroeder yelling in the champ. And also Elliott Gould was a big name, believe it or not.
Yeah. Ryan O'Neal. Every time I look at him, he looks like the guy from that show I was watching, Elliott Smith and Jones. He looks like the tall blonde guy. I think his name's Brad or something.
Well, this is like, I mean, the Expendables on steroids with like 3 times the budget. I mean, this thing.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it was kind of like Batman versus Superman. And when I say that, I mean, you had so much going on in this movie. It was kind of loosely connected. They kept panning from different places to different things, and it's like you're trying to keep up, you know. Mm-hmm. The only thing that really kept me interested in this movie going forward, it was the fact that when they go to Gene Hackman, or they'd go over to Robert Redford, Sean Connery, but the ones that stole the movie for me, James Caan, in here.
Yeah.
Both sides here. You come across him the first time we see him. He's in his little bunker, little tent, and he's just sitting there smoking a cigarette, laying down. And the other guy's freaking out, and it's like, you know, he's gonna die, and and he's just playing the cool, calm guy, you know. And then later on in the movie, you see him in a Jeep, and he's looking, he's like, he comes across the guy, he's like, where's the captain? He's like, he's dead. He's like, I don't care, where is he? And he goes, and that's the same guy he was talking to earlier. Mm-hmm. And he brings up, and he ends up saving his life by pulling a gun on the surgeon who refused to work on him because the guy had a bullet in his head. I was like, wow, Robert Redford having to cross pretty much the river, and getting shot at, mortar shells, everything. Gene Hackman basically being told, hey, there's fog, we can't let you go yet. And he's like, what the fuck, you know? And another thing about that, part of my language, I use the word, the F word. This movie almost got a radar, rating for it because it dropped the F out here. But I guess the British, like the movie critic or whatever company, whatever association, said no, this is a G movie because we want kids to be able to watch this, for educational purposes.
Well, let's take a few moments to just kind of briefly outline some of the positives. I'll go first. From my perspective, with a war film, and again, it's hard for me to kind of specifically say with war, what is it that you want to see? I don't want to necessarily see bodies. I don't necessarily want to see gruesome violence. I want to appreciate it and have that sense of feeling of dread, which you do get here at the ending, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get to that. But some of the positives, it's an extremely good-looking film. The way it's shot, the parachute scene, you mentioned Robert Redford crossing the water is really good.
You feel weapons,
like you're there. It's not a beautiful extravaganza like you might get in like Rambo's not really a war movie. I'm not going to argue it like that, but it's a beautiful film. This film's beautifully shot, but you feel like you're there on the field with all these guys. The cast, I mean, come on. You really could not put a cast like that today. You would do it in stupid-ass comedy, and it wouldn't have the same weight that this has, because you're right. No matter who you like or what you like, there's going to be somebody you like in here. Robert Redford, he's such a good-looking man. He's not quite handsome, but he's kind of pretty, but he's like a
very young in this. Yeah.
He is, and I tell you, and I'm not saying this is a negative, but when I look at Robert Redford, I look at Robert Redford. I don't see him playing a character. He's playing Robert Redford.
True,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But somebody like a James Caan that, like you said when you saw before first see him smoking a cigarette and all that, we talked about him in Thief, 1980-81 from Michael Mann, how phenomenal is. He is so believable to me, right? Sean Connery, how can you not think of James Bond or other things? Seriously, I'm not saying he's a bad actor, but it's tough because when you have so many people here with the star power in it, do you just want to focus on one because you get that emotional investment? Doesn't matter. How do you think about all that?
Well, you're correct in Robert Redford. Robert Redford, whenever I see him, he's pretty much got the Brad Pitt effect, or before Brad Pitt. Whenever I see Brad Pitt in a movie, I see Brad Pitt. I don't see any other actor or character he's supposed to be doing. It's just Brad Pitt in every role. Same with Michael Caine. Michael Caine in this was like a younger, more brash Michael Caine.
Young Michael Caine was a bastard. I mean, everyone in his older age, but he was a stud.
Because we see him in older movies, in older films, he's more elegant. He's more, reserved. He's not, a jerk.
He's the original Carter.
Yeah.
Carter. Even though I love the Stallone remake, I'm not saying it's good, but
Hackman has a few scenes in this movie, but the scenes he does, he commands the scene coming in there. He is with intelligence, and just his emotional range. I just love it. It's just like or Sean Connery, I see Bond, but more so in this character, it was less Bond in this, because this movie, being a war movie, 3 hours long, they really got to fit everybody in here too. But the two people that really stand out, because Marley had the most action scenes, the longer scenes, was probably James Caan and Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins was the first person to the bridge they're going to try and hold, and his men are going up against a tank division, and all they have is rifles and some maybe grenade launchers, and they're holed up in this home. And this poor lady is like, because they go in their house because like, we need to hold up in here, and the guy's like, "Oh, can you guys keep it down? She doesn't like loud noise." He's like, "Is she aware there's a war going on?"
Well, let me just briefly mention the story, because it's kind of funny, but it's like, they're basically trying to. This supposedly is fairly historical for what it is, and the story is that I think
Operation Market.
French, all that, some Polish involved. They're going to convene together behind enemy lines, because at this point the Nazis had advanced in the Netherlands, and so they get to a point and they go, "Hey, if we can just take out some of these bridges or whatever, we can screw up their logistics chain, right? Because they have the narrow bridge and all that kind of stuff." And they're like, "Hey, you blow up so few key things, it's good." That's why everyone always jokes about Trump and Greenland, but there's a strategic thing to it that nobody really talks about, as well as Iceland and Scotland. And so all that comes from war, why we want something that doesn't look valuable. And so it's interesting, because to your point, even though war is going on, think about it from this lady's perspective. I'm only saying this to prove a point. Back then, you probably had the radio, but if you're overrun, you probably knew you were taken over. But you're in the middle of nowhere. How much you really know what's going on? How much of it you're really seeing? You just know when a bunch of people show up and there's like, there's going to be some bloodshed here shortly, lady. Well, there's nothing you can do about it.
You had, you had Patton coming from one side, and I think it was Eisenhower from the other. I can't remember what they said, the two names they were coming at the beginning of this movie. The Germans were afraid of, because he had Patton, they're both racing to see who could get to Berlin first. So the Germans were pretty much they're expecting an invasion from the American Allied troops. They didn't know when, and these weren't like, "Oh my gosh, we need to run away." They held their own in this, which I liked. It wasn't like you're playing Halo and the little guy is like, "Oh my gosh, it's a demon." Like they actually were like, they're badass Germans in here too.
Well, that's the thing, is people talk about stereotypes and trying not to offend and going across type, but you got your Germans acting German, you've got your British sipping tea, you've got your Americans being brash. I mean, you've got your English acting Britishy. I mean, it's I'm not knocking that. I think that's kind of cool, and it's very diverse and multicultural in that respect. So that, to me, is kind of like a positive, right? Because normally you just see it from one person's perspective. Oh, we're the great Americans. Everything we do is great. We're, just lead us. We're the smarter than everybody. Just follow us. America, America, America. It's not a knock, but
And
here to see everybody kind of being involved, you're like, hey, that is kind of cool. That it is a international multicultural front, especially in World War II. That's why I call it a world war.
as far as America is being brash, that's been portrayed in a lot of different movies. Now, whether that's just for Hollywood cinema amped up, or if it actually was, that's the way it is. But yeah, there's a scene in here where they basically want to keep going with and get to the thing where Redford wants to go, but that he's yelling at the British guys. Well, we're waiting because we don't have any infantry. We got to wait for them. He's like, well, you're doing that. My men are up there. We just died for nothing crossing the river. It's like, it's like, so there's a lot of, and now this just remember, this is based on a true story. Now, and this is believable as far as people, the Americans, people, if you just watch all your men slaughtered and for what, nothing, they were losing the war, or at least this part, getting here. This was a 90% successful operation, but the cost it had, was significantly as far as devastating.
Yeah, and the thing too is a lot of it was filmed in the areas where all the stuff took place, so it adds some of that authenticity. In addition to, like I say, a lot of it being outside everything too. It wasn't let's just do a set piece here in some jungle.
Watching Anthony Hopkins, his story from the beginning to the end, where basically they run out of ammunition, and then they have to surrender, and it's just like you're waiting for them to get popped in the head by the German officer. And he's like, here's the chocolate bar. He's like, oh, it's really good. He's like, it's English, because their landing zones were occupied by the German, and so their supplies and their food and ammunition was being dropped off, and the Germans were taking it.
Yep.
It was like I said, it was just a depressing event. This was Operation Market Garden was the whole thing. Field operation, so this was based on a film script by William Gould, based on a book of the same title by historian Cornelius Ryan. This was done by Richard Attenborough.
Yep.
Yeah, who a lot of people said he basically made a 3-hour B movie. It was just the only thing that held this movie together was the star power. Which, honestly, I think the reason a lot of people probably didn't like, if I don't know, I'm not. Obviously, it made double its budget. So I'm not sure what the reception was, how bad it was, but honestly, for me, I think a lot of people probably would not like this movie because of the fact, it's a failed mission. It's not a hurrah like Saving Private Ryan at the end. It's not a happy ending. If it had been a happy ending, I think the outcome would have been much more positive. But the fact it's 3 hours long really takes a toll on this, because a lot of people have to watch stuff where the heroes win in the end. This is kind of where the bottom hero, we see them they're like deciding, well, this was a waste of time. Let's retreat. And it's just like a lot of people are just upset because of the fact that, this was your idea, and now it does, and all the people are died for nothing. So, yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow, because the fact this is based on a true story too. So we're watching these guys get gunned down by Nazi snipers and mortar shells, machine gun fire. I mean, there was a few scenes in here though I did kind of like. Those the guys on the bridge they're gonna take they're sneaking up with a flamethrower. The guy starts talking. He's like, "Shut up!" And then he misses, and he's like, his arm is like, "You totally missed the thing." And they're like, "Ah, it's because you put my arm." And then also these large explosions on the bridge. I believe this is the bridge. It's in the Netherlands. They're showing it. It's Deventer, I think it's called Deventer Bridge. And it was just like this huge explosions, everything. The other scene is where the Germans come in after the British, basically, Anthony Hopkins' team take out another the division before the tanks roll in. And they come with a guy with a white flag. He's like, "Oh, here, the general wants to know, you for surrender." He's like, I think Hopkins to him is like, "Surrender." It's like telling he's like, "Oh, we'll accept your surrender. Come on."
Yeah.
The guy's like, "What?" The German. I love that. It's like there's a few stuff in here that was kind of humorous. And these guys were cracking jokes because a lot of them knew the situation they're in, so they're trying to keep the morale up too. So, like I said, a very gritty, long. I don't want to say disgusting, but I mean, people getting shot in the eye, people, it's just legs, and just it was not it's war, and it actually describes war, and it's not Hollywood, Hollywoodized up, I would say.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Here's one of the things I kind of wanted to get into a little about the film because we're talking about some of the stuff that happens in here and all that. It's definitely worth seeing because I think it illustrates a lot of I think some of the pluses and minuses
Mhm.
with it. So I know that, like, for example, we don't make a lot of war movies about war like we used to. They don't have the same impact. We were not a part of the greatest generation, that sort of thing.
Kelly's
So I think
heroes, yeah, yeah.
I think it's lost its place in a sense. And it's I think that's an obvious statement. I don't think that's really an opinion necessarily. But for me, I go, like I say, what do I want to see in a war movie? Do I want to feel doomed? Do I want to feel despair? Do I want to see something political? Well, you know what? It's up to the director to put his vision on it. And I think that, like, for example, I know we've talked a little bit about themes of movies and different types over the years, and like in 80s films like this, or this director is like this. And this guy wasn't necessarily interested in making a movie talking about, say, the world being taken over, or the doom of a nuclear war that could come later, or communism spreading around the world, right? So a lot of times it's just the strength of the personality of the characters that we get interested in, and people that are hardcore like biographers and readers of war and aficionados and all that, which there used to be so many of them. I don't know how much there are anymore, especially World War II.
Mhm.
It was something that I think kind of stayed in the public consciousness, definitely through the 80s, right? But like
Yeah.
Churchill, for example, phenomenal figure. Uh, England had been the source of the world's strength for quite some time at that point. Pound sterling was the world's reserve currency until it became, gold, right? And I just go, when Churchill's away trying to save England, that's when the communism and progressivism takes in. And it's just a fact. I'm not saying these are right or wrong. I'm not giving any opinions. I'm just saying you also got MacArthur in World War II, not necessarily a figure here per se. But again, while he's going over the Philippines doing I Shall Return and the whole, Pacific Fleet thing going on, what happens? We bring all the people from the war over in the United States, and so all the progressive goes into all our institutions. So it's just amazing that you get something like NATO that everyone thinks of as a good organization and all that. They're made supposedly to stop communism. And let's not forget, people, Russia was pretty much our friends for a long period of time. And now people think, well, they're bad guys. Why? Because they were in Rocky movies, Here, what I liked a lot about this movie was the guy wasn't necessarily trying to make you see anything until, and this is what I was going to ask you before we describe it, until you get to the ad. So let me ask you this, because I think this is a very interesting question. When you see a movie about a war, what do you want to see?
Well, it basically is, as I said before, is you want to see a happy ending for them, for the good guys, and this is more like oh well, and like corruption, kind of like like the means meet the end. But in this case, Sean Connery's like, what? It's like, yeah, it was kind of a depressing ending. Um, and that's why it was one of the things with the critics. They said a film too long, and a film that basically, who wants to watch something where people don't win? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, but honestly, for educational purposes, it is good to recount stuff like that so people don't make the same mistakes. You know, because the Allied, basically the British were very overconfident with this operation. You know, where at the very beginning though, it's funny because Gene Hackman like, what, doesn't sound right, you know. He didn't really trust it. So it's like I said, I like this because this movie makes Gene Hackman seem like he's like, his character is just so more incredibly smart than the people that are in charge. And even though he's got that much, he doesn't have much screen time, but when he shows up, he calls in the questions that the people watching at home are like, why are we doing this? You know. So I like that you can identify with him, his character. You know. Um, but yeah, the ending was kind of like a bittersweet ending. The guy, I believe it's Edward. Is it Edward Fox? The guy on the far right. I can't remember what his name is. Down there at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Oh, it was like a 90% effective operation, even though it failed." And you just see Sean Connery is just like, are you freaking kidding me? I just watched all my men died, and then and then Anthony Hopkins' character and all stuff. It's like you wasted our time and our manpower for nothing.
Yeah.
It's basically, it would have been worse if they would have been like, oh, it was a wager, like like see who could get there first, and like, well, we tried. Oh well,
It's to me what I liked about it. I thought this was a little different because you don't necessarily see this a lot of movies. Is it's boring to sit there and talk logistics. And it's nice to hear. Oh, if we get here, we blow this up, or we take control of this, we can blah blah blah, and that's like your hope spot, right? That's what drives it along, right? But what you really want to have is just something that gives the people in it and involved around it a reason to shine and kind of from their angle see how they perceive it and get stuff. So I do like that from the international cast. I mean, I personally would like to have had a smaller group. It seemed more personal, like in Where Eagles Dare, with a couple of them trying to break in, break out sort of thing. It just feels better to me, rather than something that's not personal because you got too many people, even though they're all great actors. I think at the end here, though, the idea is that you can look at something in two ways. You look at the people out there on the battlefield, in the arena, is the old expression, pulling the trigger. Then there's the people that say, hey, we're going to send you off to go do what we think needs to work. And it's that whole thing of, well, who's right? And if you got a great general and you've got somebody that really understands his people and all that, people run through a wall for you. But then you get people that add percentages to it, do metrics and all that, and they're disassociated from with it, and they're not looking at it as war, as death. They're looking at it as, like, to your point, well, it's 90% successful except everybody died. It's like, well, how the fuck do you get that rating? How do you assign that with people there and them dying?
And that guy never set foot on the ground whatsoever. Sean Connery was, everyone else was too. So I'm just waiting for Sean Connery to basically punch him in the face and resign.
Yeah. Ryan's making a comment there about the military sergeants and stuff are better at military tactics. There's strategy and there's tactics, but there's also, no matter what you think you should do to win, there's the question of whether or not you've got the support system, aka the logistics in it. And that is a manufacturing issue. So one of the main reasons people go to war is because they just don't have any money, or they want to go to war and they need to fund it. So they take things over. Communism and all that stuff was relatively new at the time, but who owns the means of production and what you can do with them? Hitler had his own version of it. And of course, everyone just thinks about him and what he did with people. We don't really want to go there too much, but it's amazing. And so the war effort here in the United States was a function of our independence and the fact that we were different than the other country. And we went through this incredible growth phase in the 1800s going into the 1900s. And then it really slowed down after World War II.
And that's the other thing too about this. The Nazis they weren't vile Nazis as you see in some of the other movies. They were kind of reserved, and I don't know if that was on purpose or whatever.
I think it was, because I think it was meant to portray them as the people that do believe in their viewpoints and being consistent with that. It's not to make them look like good guys, but everybody's got their own beliefs. The British believed the war should go a certain way, as well as America and all that. And there's a who's in charge here, right? But there's also just deep cultural things that influence their thinking. And for Nazis, it's, until things got there towards the end, I mean, he had a pretty strong push across there. We know France rolled over like a dog in other countries. And some people say Hitler might have been more successful if he just didn't divide his stuff up in the Russian winter and all that stuff. And I'm no historian, but it's logistics, right? So it's amazing because you've got Field Marshal Rommel, the Desert Fox in Africa, running that, and that's its own thing that might be interesting. There's a few movies of that in there with James Mason, but nobody's really gonna know that unless you're aficionado. But I think this movie, and I'm gonna say it like this: another very movie that became popular in 1977 was, of course, Star Wars, which is a ripoff of something else, and that has its own wartime type of thing in there that nobody wants to talk about. And you can talk about being fantasy or space opera and not really science fiction, because it's not, it's fantasy. But the story part about it is almost similar in that you got a bunch of different people with a bunch of different things going on and who's in charge here. And so it's amazing because you've got this war movie with all this acting talent and something cultural, and then you got something fantasy-like in Star Wars. And this movie just kind of like, it's like whoever thought of Star Wars must have thought, we don't have to really worry about talent. We don't really have to worry about putting something together. We'll try something maybe a little different here, but you can just be wildly successful doing that. And I think the big blockbusters in the 70s, really was the beginning of the end of really movies, in the sense that people started looking for franchises and now tentpoles, and it's led us to where we're at now. Nobody would make a war movie today for the most part, or if so, it wouldn't feel like war to me. That's my take.
Yeah. What do you think about Denham Elliott's scene in this? If you don't know really who it is, he played Marcus Brody in the Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah,
He just kind of randomly popped up in here, though. I was expecting him.
I never thought he was a pug whacker or anything like that. Indiana Jones. I thought he was solid. But here's the thing: the British turn out so many good actors, and because they have Shakespeare, that's their boy, right? So there's so many people that said, you know what? I don't even want to be in movies because they're trash or television. Excuse me. Let me go to the theater or the stage or something like that, because that was considered more higher serious art. So I never have a problem seeing a British actor, especially in older movies, pop up, because they're going to be good. Seriously.
Well, this movie, it was a very British-led operation. So they had to have all. And here's the thing about this: this movie could not be made today, because back then they had a high caliber arsenal of actors to choose from. They're British. They're in this. That's why there's so many good actors in here. But I was not expecting Denham Elliott to pop up here. And here's the thing about this: he played he actually served in World War II.
Right.
Denham did. So he was a gunner / radio operator and stuff. So it's kind of cool. You had some of these guys who actually did serve in World War II, or at least I don't know if Sean Connery was in. I don't know if he was old enough. He might have been.
I know he was a bodybuilder and all that. I don't know if he was in. I really don't.
No.
Off the top of my head.
But I mean, it says when you had actual people who are actually probably in World War II that were in these movies, World War II, it became a little bit more authentic. And now I almost kind of wonder if these people were having PTSD flashbacks at all, a bit because of this, And but I gotta say this: the fight scenes in this movie are pretty much, you've seen them before. As far as the bullets flying, the guns blowing, but I love the fact they had over 70 different tanks and other vehicles or
props.
they're able to use in this movie and blow up and do stuff with it and tip over. And there isn't money left, especially when it got the same Private Ryan. I don't think there was many left by then, But movies like this paved the way for movies like Saving Private Ryan. But I understand why this might be loved by a lot of people, because, like I said, once again, people like Kelly's Heroes, Where Eagles Dare. They love a good hero the basically rally behind and have him win at the end, And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like I said, if this been an American operation, I think it would have been a different ending. It would have been much more support by people. The fact that this was a British and it failed. Americans really didn't care, for it.
Well, I mean, America kind of got brought into it, and you could talk about, the history of stuff and how the world burns politically and how it still affects us today. And I think it's very clear, if you do watch this movie, if you haven't, that being older with some experience under your belt might give you a different perspective than watching when you're younger. Certainly, I felt that way as a kid. I was like, okay, whatever. None of that was really that significant to me. I looked at it like an action movie, right?
Yeah.
But now as an adult, with a lot of years under my belt, I can go, well, I feel something for the actors because, I like a lot of them here. And of course, we put this up there for Gene Hackman, really. And, I was thinking about Gene Hackman lately and the stuff he must have seen in his lifetime. And I will tell you, it's not a knock for anybody that served or is young now and is in some form of the military. But back then, because it was such a worldwide phenomenon, I think people realized that, hey, we did it for the greater good. Now we're home. Now let's do the right thing, which is get back to our lives, try to adjust as much as possible, whatever country that is, whatever the situation is. It wasn't until later that we started seeing, I think, maybe Korea War, even though that's only talked about a little bit, it's never really shown. Definitely Vietnam is when people were like, no, we don't want our people to go off to war because war sucks. And you people make these decisions and say things like, well, we're 90% effective in this exercise. It's just that we died. But it really, really helped us get very close to war. We were almost there. Nobody wants to hear that shit. Nobody wants to send their kids off to war. They don't. And I think that once that's gotten into public consciousness around the world, to your point about not being able to make a movie like that today, it would be a different kind of war movie. Yeah. This war here is kinetic, right? Wars today are now more economic or more hacking, that kind of stuff. Yeah, the nuclear option is always there, and the kinetic stuff always comes after the world war's already kind of started. Is the way most people would talk about war today. Not like then.
So I gotta ask, you being the older person, you probably watch a lot of older movies, maybe with your father and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever watch Judgment at Nuremberg?
I've seen it. At the time, again, being younger, like in the 80s, you only have a certain perspective of it. Rewatching that, I would probably think a little differently about it, or might understand or appreciate some of the scenes a bit more. Just like this film, if you're older and you've got some experience, I think you can appreciate this more just because of your background.
So the reason I bring it up because the German general in this, do you recognize who was the guy who was on the bridge with Anthony Hopkins, getting the chocolate bar? That's Maximilian Schell or Schell.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the Judgment in Nuremberg. He won for like best supporting actor.
Right.
So, and I thought his presence was very commanding too as well.
Look. You mentioned Anthony Hopkins a lot, right? And you asked about British actors. Here's Anthony Hopkins. At this point, I don't think he had done that killer doll movie, Magic, which is just phenomenal.
No.
And he certainly wasn't yet the Anthony Hopkins most of us think of when we think of Silence of the Lambs and maybe some other things, right? And he's an older gentleman. He's going to go, but he's still active. He's great in anything that I see him in. But to watch him grow from, like, I think he was in The Lion in Winter with a bunch of other people there in the 60s. I think that he was younger at the time, so he'd been around a while. But I remember him with Mel Gibson, and if you go watch The Bounty from I think 83, 84, phenomenal movie to me. I look at Mel Gibson and go, damn, he's so good looking. I'm like, but shit, compared to Anthony Hopkins, Mel can't act, and then Mel can act, but he's got to be in the right kind of thing to act, if you know what I'm saying. That's not a knock on Mel. Love Mel, but I'm looking at him going, holy crap, this guy playing the captain against you, it's not even close, bro.
Well, Mel works best with the crazy parts, where he's yelling, like as I said, Braveheart, Lethal Weapon, stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't think there's a bad actor in the film, literally, or a bad scene. I just, again, when you have so many of them, it's like, you can't give them equal time. Which one do you like? That means you might not like some others. It's a tough going, but I think the movie's successful in that if you watch it, again, it looks great. You understand what they're trying to accomplish, and we'll talk about that in here to finish up. But what I liked most once I started realizing is, okay, the guy's trying to show me how no matter who's involved in war, it kind of comes down to good things. Like, for example, no matter what job you have, no matter what kind of money you make, being rich is not your salary or inheriting it. It's your behavior, how you discipline yourself to do stuff or whatever. And you can argue to your blue in the face. I'm just simply using that as an example where shit happens in war, and a lot of it comes down to logistics. You can have the greatest fighters and this and that, but if they're stuck or you have an unexpected weather event, it can turn things, right? You just don't know. That's why they call it the fog of war. You're in a haze, right?
Yeah, and you brought up Magic for Anthony Hopkins. That's a year later after this. So, and then his career started to get more noticeable. But I think he was doing a lot of more drama, more play stuff. So theater in the background. That's what a lot of these actors did. I think a lot of Americans probably didn't really recognize him. Anthony Hopkins until was Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. When he took, and I was like, holy crap, this guy is just like. I think that's probably. I don't know. It's hard to say what Anthony Hopkins' defining role is. I still think it's as a Hannibal Lecter. That's his big role.
Well, I mean, that certainly made him culturally relevant because in the 90s, again, they sexified being like FBI agents and serial killers instead of being afraid of them or thinking they're creeps and weirdos. It was like, oh, that's cool. Let's look at the dark side. Let's get all emo. And it's like, really?
It fit because we were glorifying Jason, Michael, Freddy.
Yeah.
So it fit right in. Another celebrities in here you may know is Cliff from Cheers. John Ratzenberger was in this movie as well, in a small little cameo.
Right.
So I said I don't know if this was his first movie or big thing, but it says like there's a lot of actors that popped up in this. They said there's only one thing I ask you though, Brad. Though.
What's up?
Did this pass the Meg test for you?
This movie versus the Meg, don't even get me started. Come on.
For the Meg test, you've a loaded cast. Did the movie do well, or was despite the cast it limpered and this went
I,
away.
I think it was successful, unlike the Meg, which is a fail. The Meg test, ladies and gentlemen, I joked about at the time ranting because star-studded cast, all the CGI, all the money, all the budgets presented really big, and it just absolutely fucking sucks. It's just trash straight through and through, right?
Yeah.
And of course Hollywood even has this term now where they call the second screen, apparently, where they make intentionally trashy stuff, but just tolerable and productive enough. Look, to do what they have to do here, like with the paratrooping kind of scenes and all that stuff there. At that time, how fucking hard that was compared to now with drones and CGI. Get out of here. That to me, that adds a sense of more realism to them. Just like when I talk about being able to see people doing stunts, even if it's a stuntman in martial arts films, right? I love that stuff, right? Here, I look at all these actors and I go, Ryan O'Neal, you may not know him, heavyweight at the time. Everybody knows Sean Connery. Everybody knows Robert Redford. Are you going to ever find a more star-studded cast than this? And I'm serious.
Yeah, Ryan O'Neal's in A Love Story, which is pretty much a Walk to Remember before Walk to Remember. I was reading up about that. It's about a love story about two opposites, and then he falls in love with a girl, and then she dies at the end. I was like, wow, that's depressing. But they blew up his career for that love story, and this was the other thing that people liked them. But you could tell who the major star powers were. I mean, Sean Connery, yes, he's great here, but Robert Redford, James Caan, and Gene Hackman popped louder, I think, than any other actor in this movie.
Well, it's funny because we mentioned James Caan with Michael Mann and Thief, but Brian Cox, who's not in here, is an actor that first played Anthony Hopkins' character Hannibal in Manhunter in like 85, 86, which is like a TV movie or something, right when Miami Vice is getting started. And people think Anthony Hopkins did it first. No, you go watch Brian Cox and everyone's like, who's this guy, Brian Cox, and what's he doing here? And, oh, this is really that? No. The movie only starts with Anthony Hopkins. Well, no, it's not true. So it's always interesting to see somebody's career and what they were doing and the timing of it, right? Like you said, you really couldn't make a movie like this today. It would be a lot more difficult. We'd see more of the government is spying on you, those kinds of movies, rather than something personal, which means, any minute now, a bomb could drop or a stray bullet and you're fucking dead and you're literally physically there. Now it's, oh, my phone's hacked, this is going on or whatever. It just doesn't have the same because it's not, you just don't think you're going to die, right? I mean, what recent movie has been that way? I don't know of any, right? Look, I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of war movies because I ask myself, what do I want out of war? It's miserable, it's horrific, it should feel that way. And again, to answer your question and to kind of finish up here in a long roundabout way, let's talk about the ending. That I think helps make the movie.
Oh, the ending, as far as the ending after talking, general stuff, we go back to basically the British soldiers who basically, they had, because they had smuggled their wounded out, the men, in order to basically avoid German capture, only to prolong it. And then there's a scene in there where they're at the widow's house with their three kids, they've been holding up. She and the other the European doctor basically and her three kids are seen pulling what's left of her belongings on a wagon, and they're going up a hill where the British soldiers are just singing a hymn, I guess. I think it's a Bible hymn. I'm not sure what they're singing. But it's and they're just sitting there waiting, and they all look miserable. They're all wounded. Some are bandaged eyes. It is just a powerful ending, and it kind of and so it shows us the widow, her three kids, and then the doctor, and then they go over the cliff, and that's it. And they roll the credits. It's like, it is just like, what the heck?
That's how you do it. That's how you end the movie.
Yeah. I'm looking at other movies, like, as far as Robert Redford and all that stuff, because he's done so many movies. I was going to see what he'd been in before this. Butch Cassidy, The Sundance Kid, The Sting, Great Gatsby, 3 Days the Condor, which is 75, All the President's Men, and they did this. So I mean, he really had been hot as an actor on there. So, and I kind of wish he did more. They'd done more war movies.
Yeah, and I think
the reason I bring it up, because we saw that Clint Eastwood was doing war movies.
Yep.
And I think Robert Redford would have been shooing for that, but he kind of stayed away from that a little bit and all.
Damn, Robert is good looking in here. I mean, he really is.
Dude,
he's that old American boy, isn't he?
Yeah, he looks. Yeah, he should have been Flash Gordon.
No, the guy who Slash was a Slash in my mind. No, but like it's just
He's a guy. Yeah, exactly. As he's got that strong American jaw line. Like I said, we talk about we talk.
oval face, the high cheekbones.
Yeah, we talk about the chin of chins. Robert Redford's up there. I mean, I like Bruce Campbell, but Robert Redford is the guy who come in and hey, I'll seduce your wife for $1 million.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's a good looking dude, and honestly, I like whatever he's in. But Michael Caine is just like, well, you're not Mr. Scrooge in this. You're more like, let's go, guys. And he's like very cynical, and he's just like gung ho. He almost comes off a little bit cheeky, almost like he's Eric Idle a little bit. I can see what Eric Idle was kind of probably based off of him in some of his parodies.
Michael Caine went from like whacking people to hello love, my name is Michael Caine, and you're like, what the fuck?
Well, we've never watched what is it with Denzel Washington movies?
Kill we reviewed.
No, but we did the Denzel Washington movies of his. I think, was it called The Enforcer? Or the
Denzel?
Equalizer. Was it Michael Caine the Equalizer? I think somebody else.
So, yeah, I think yeah, you have to Google that, bro.
Yeah. But I mean, I want to watch some more younger stuff with him. Not the Jennifer Connelly one.
There's the honestly, I'll say this. I'll name two people that were not in this movie that would have added to it, because I think, man, if they had them, that would have been complete. One would have been Oliver Reed, who's just fantastic.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And then the other one was the guy I mentioned earlier who did some other movies about having to do with war, and that would be James Mason. I knew you and I had some different takes about the Salem's Lot remake from last year, which is
as long as he's drunk, James Mason, that's what I want.
Well, James Mason is, he played Field Marshal. I think it was Rommel in The Desert Fox. I forget the movie or a couple movies or whatever. And I remember him going, oh, he's a guy that could have fit in here really easily, in my opinion. So there's probably more I'm not thinking of right now, but I'm like, you cannot put a cast together this well. So I look at a movie like this, and I look at a movie like Star Wars, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And I go, which one should have won like Best Picture out of those two? Which one's the better film? Well, I think your answer generally would be, well, whichever one do you like more is the better film. Why? Because you like it. That's not a wrong answer. That's an answer. So looking at it from that lens, like to me, I think this is a better film than Star Wars. I am not a Star Wars fan, you know that. But this is the kind of film that for me, I can watch and appreciate it. I'm probably never going to watch it again. I have no reason to. It's not that kind of a film. It's too heavy. And I don't mind heavy and dark, but there's nothing about it that makes me go, yeah, got to watch some World War II films. I got to watch this. You know what I'm saying? I watch them to experience them and compare it to other ones, and that's pretty much it. These kinds of films to me are like a little, I don't know, they're good films, but are you really going to rewatch them again? That's the thing to me. I think that there's a merit to that, because a good film doesn't mean it's rewatchable, right? Mm-hmm. I mentioned Get Carter earlier. I can watch that over and over. Michael Caine's in that. Stallone's in that. Mickey Rourke's in it. I mean, Miss what's her face is in there, the chick we were going to do the Hallmark movies with, real beautiful woman. She's in there as a punk kid. It's a horrible film. It's a horrible edited, but I can't stop watching it over and over.
Here's the one we need to watch: The Italian Job. With
the original.
The original.
Yeah.
And then also
not these happy ones like Ocean's 11 remake where they actually get away with it, because in the original one you're not supposed to get away with it.
Yeah. Or The Eagle Has Landed. Do you know who's in that movie? Eagle Landed. It's another big cast. Donald Sutherland, Robert Duvall, Donald Pleasance. Then we also have
Donald Pleasance.
I know, right?
Love Donald Pleasance.
Here's the big name that's in there. Treat Williams.
Oh, Treat's always good.
I know, right?
He is. And I want to go watch the substitute films.
And then Jenny Gutter is in there too, as well, too.
Yeah, she was the chick getting boned in American Werewolf in London. She was the nurse, I believe, in that. She was in several movies actually at the time too. So she was the name.
So he had just done the Eagle Had Landed a year before this movie came up.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. But final thoughts, sir?
Final thoughts. So it's free on Tubi, so you're not paying for it. You may or may not like it, but I'd like give this movie a try. Now, I'll just say this: it's a 3-hour movie. Keep it, and it's a history movie. So it's based on a true story. It's dramatized. And there is some action here, but not a lot. So, and I would say at least give it a try. You know, if you have to, break it up. I did it. I did that. I watched the first hour like last week, and then I came back to it and watched the last 2 hours today. Like I said, it's a very gritty, dark movie with a little bit of dark humor. Nothing like Inglourious Bastards, and it's based off a failed mission. So it's gonna be a little bit sad. But I said I love the fact that they're using actual uh, tanks
Yep.
and all that stuff. The German tanks and the American tanks and all that stuff. Um, what was the Bailey Bridge? Is what it's called?
That sounds familiar.
That's what they use in here, the floating bridge. And they put
Yep.
it together. They go across the river. I thought that was awesome. I was like, that was so cool. It's like, because you don't. How do you see that in a war movie where they actually construct the brig and he's like, he's like, move it faster, get this bridge together, you little maggots and stuff. It's like, I thought it was interesting too. And Robert Redford crossing the Delaware. Pretty much, he makes a joke. I'm gonna be George Washington, bright daylight. Thanks, guys. Uh, yeah, it's just on little inflatable rafts, and then Gene Hackman's trying to basically get the supplies across at nighttime. The guy had swung across the channel to warn him. The guy's all, it's just like, yeah, it was like I said, a lot of stuff that was going on as far as this movie, in this whole operation. The radios weren't working, so there's no communication, which really screwed up a lot of things. And the Germans pretty much were more well organized. Uh, we even got a little storm on the beach. It's not Normandy level, but I mean, it's still devastating. But check it out. It's free on Tubi.
Yeah.
And and we'll see you guys on Sunday then.
We'll just make a mental note there for Slag 17.
Yeah.
Forever. Yeah, there's just so many.
Great Escape is another one of these movies you watch and it's just like it's not a good ending.
Well, so what do we got coming up? We had just dropped the last Forever Night television show.
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes Scandal Bohemia is scheduled to drop. We're doing season 1 of that. That would be the Granada TV series from 84. I keep thinking 88, 89.
Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be dropping around there.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing that. We're going to be working in after that for all the fans out there. So you're warned about it. We'll promote it ahead of time. We've already made the decision that we want to return to season 3 of Columbo because we really, really like that. And so Sherlock Holmes, then we'll do another James Bond movie to continue that. That'll be GoldenEye. And then we'll be going, we're looking into April, May-ish there, going into Columbo season 3 before we then do another Bond movie and transition in the summer, fall to another television show. So be looking forward to that. We'll be putting a new poll up here, the topic to be determined, but appreciate you guys joining, spending time with us tonight, retweeting, letting people know that we exist, drawing some people in. I think that's phenomenal. Starting to get more comments and everything there too. What I really appreciate the most is the fact that the comments technically aren't really negative. They're people are interested stuff, and that's really what we're about too. Yeah. So thank you everybody for that.
And maybe we'll have a Michael Caine poll up next Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah, the original Good Carter maybe, and so that's like almost like a given.
I'm still thinking French Connection 2 should be next Tuesday since that was pretty much in second place for the most part.
Yeah.
You guys, let us know what you think. Leave comments down below, and subscribe. Hit the notification button, and check out our playlists. We got a lot of cool stuff. We got a lot of different genres: 80s, some 70s, and some classic 60s, and a lot of 40s stuff too. So Bogarde, all that stuff.
Good night now.
Later, guys. Oh yeah, there's one more thing. I forgot to tell you guys to just stay extreme.
Kaboom.
Kaboom.